All right, after a first day failed attack by Victor, overnight he accepted some orders, or did he, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Looks like he accepted some orders that Joseph gave him. Fourth Corps was given orders to support that attack, the attack that's going on, going up this hill. We're in the midst of that attack. It's going kind of mixed, but Fourth Corps was ordered to support it and decided to ignore those orders. Joseph's working on getting more orders out, but, you know. I mean, he's written the orders, they've arrived, and they're distorted as well, if I recall correctly, yeah. So, Fourth Corps has twice refused direct orders that were generated off-map. Meanwhile, the French have tried a more extensive attack, including from the north. That's all that's left, it looks like, against the hill up here. And they got repulsed on the eastern side. However, they have more power up to the north and may be able to push the Brits off the hill in that direction. That's pretty much where we're standing. Yeah, got a bunch of routes. Okay, so we had a few occurrences in the orders side of things. The distorted orders for Fourth Corps were discovered. Now, I didn't do what I usually do, which kind of feels a little like cheating, but maybe not. I don't know. Sebastiani's not stacked with Joseph. If he had gone over to Joseph, he'd be prepared, and I could have written orders right away. As it stands, I've got to move another turn. That sucks. That's a habit that, you know, when you get used to the system, the CWB, whatnot, you tend to take. Hey, people need orders. Flock around the overall commander. You're not really needed at your corps. You know, you don't want the corps commander in the front because he might get shot. He's too valuable for that in general. And otherwise, unless he's jumping around rallying units. And even when he is, usually the army commander can walk over and talk to him. Of course, that bounces the army commander on and off the headquarters. In this game, Joseph can't do that, but Sebastiani could be over there talking to Joseph. Now, the reason it feels like cheating is I'm like, oh, I have this distorted order, and, you know, I just found out that it's not there, and I've been standing around waiting, you know, to figure that out. But you could also look at it as they're having a discussion about the situation that goes on for quite a while, and that the reason it's distorted in part is because there's not an acceptance between the commander and his sub-commander. You certainly had situations where there were discussions of that nature. And Joseph probably caused them. You know, in terms of personal stuff, I woke up, it was like 4 p.m. Granted, you know, that I went to bed sometime around 10 a.m. after having slept for several hours. It's just everything gets so confusing. But the sort of manic phase that I'm in, I'm still in it, I can tell. But it's not a useful thing for the most part. Like, I did some dishes yesterday, but quite often what just ends up happening is I'm like, oh shit, you know, my mind's worrying, I'm stressing about the stuff that I need to get done tremendously. I'm in like a complete like emotional wreck from it, yet I don't actually get anything done or do anything or whatever. And it's just like I'm just miserable, that's all. You know, yeah, I get a little bit more done than I do normally, but not enough to justify the level of misery. And this is where I look at Comfort for me is avoiding these stages. Happiness comes from these stages, right? And that's why they're kind of at odds with each other. Anyway, I will play some games, and then I have to do raid very soon after. So I'll just get the French out of the way. And the comfort isn't avoiding the manic stages alone. It's navigating that weird sort of path between the manic and the depressive side. And the depressive has largely held hold. You could argue the addiction is a way towards comfort and just drowning and forgetting all the other things. And then, I slip into the either manic, what do I do about, I've got this fucking branch on my roof. I got to do something. I'll go play Talavera. And the depressive, fuck, there's a branch on my roof. I just wish I would die before I have to deal with it. I mean, I have to deal with it now, but I won't. The attack happened a little different than I thought it would. The British Cav squarified a couple of units there. As a follow-up, to chase the Cav away, I threw a couple of horse artillery that have been working their way up there, up to here. Now, I would have liked them in the assault situation, but I don't really need them. I didn't have room for them. So I have artillery backing up where the attack is. All along here, where I was closest, I launched attacks. These guys couldn't move fast enough without force marching, basically. Threw some additional horse artillery over here, the army artillery, to try to, weaken those forces, make it so that they're not going to be able to do anything. And we've got probably the most massive attack we've had since the game started, I think. Ouch. But the Brits get their return fire first. I guess since each attack is kind of a big thing, it's okay to give a little bit of a report on them. Anyway, here I may not do, I was planning on doing the whole string but at once, but we got crossing the stream here, which shook him. He also has to make first morale check. He failed that. He had like a 3, so he had a good chance of making it, I think. It may have been a 4, I don't know. Now, instead of this attacker one side, we use the defender one side. Again, I'm going to use the red die for the attacker's losses here because the Brits are defending, the blue die for the French. The charts are a little different. On the defender one, both sides take morale effects because the attacker is not automatically routed for losing the battle. The defender's routed if they lose. They have certain advantages. And let's see, we got a B here. In column versus a defending line, that's the case, so that goes +1. And the attacker is going to take a base of a 1-2M -1. Whereas the defender is also a B. None of these affect. So they'll take a single straggle out of it. Just to show you the other side, because we've seen attacker victories so far. But I don't think we've seen a defender victory on a battle. Aftermath, the attacker is thrown back, taking their morale losses. You'll notice the defender took a morale loss as well. Not from the charts, but because that straggle broke their unit. And so now we got 2 disorganized units facing each other, which basically means they're just going to stand there until somebody pulls out. Let's see what the rest of the line just do. Give a quick so far. We're fighting here right now, and we got to take a peek at things there that are beyond that. Here we had a firefight, and it broke kind of even. I think it broke more in favor of the French, and then they withdrew underneath their guns, which means these guns are exposed to British fire, but they can unload during the British turn if the Brits stick around to face them. So, some skirmishers might pick off those guns, but then the guns are going to get a chance to perform their sort of offensive capability as I see it in the game. Which is, 1 or 2 hexes just when you make an assault and things and holes start arriving, but this is the successful offensive thing, which is you open up lanes of fire and with your attacks, and you're able to just blast them away. In this case, it required a retreat. If there hadn't been a retreat, if I had units in both of these, I'd be covering the guns and wouldn't be getting any effect there. Now we're on the final one, which is here. Now this is interesting because I'm up on the hilltop here, and I think that is a higher terrain than the Brits. So the Brits are going to have to check their morale first. I'd succeeded, we got a shootout, and we got the very unlikely result of basically nothing happening. We end, of course, with the rallying and whatnot. And some of the units in the back are able to rally a little bit. Victor got these guys rallied. But the biggie, the Bloodlust unit, which had punched a little bit of a hole, that lost its Bloodlust, which is a pain. That would have been very useful. The Brits are going to be able to form some sort of line there, I guess. But they're getting pushed back. And the casualties, I don't know. I mean, Mackenzie's entire division is wrecked now. Some of it off the board. Who else is off the board? Got this Donkin off the board. This oughtn't to be marked. Cameron got shot up. The French have definitely taken a lot more losses. But some of those were from before, and I kind of get the feeling that this assault is going not badly for the French. This is about as well as you can hope hitting a hill like that. So I feel kind of good about that. And now it's time to drown all my feelings in the mechanics of clicking to do things in RAID. It's getting hot enough, I kind of wish I was down in the basement. But moving this would be too much. So I have the fan on, and I have this little rock here to prevent that paper from flying around. So it's on the British side of the turn here at 10 a.m. And their line is kind of crumbling. It's a mixed bag, but it doesn't look like I can hold. And one of the key issues is that Mackenzie's here, disordered. His other unit is off the board. He was in default defense. That doesn't change because he withdrew. And if he had another unit he could run to, he could go beyond that and make that the center of his operations. But this is now the center of his operations. Now Wellesley can move him, even though, his force is disordered and whatnot. But he's not really in a good position to do much right now. The Brits have done a little bit of defensive shifting, moving Mackenzie up the road here. If I go back to my headquarters, I can start issuing orders to the Spaniards, but what can they really do? I don't have a good answer to that. And can they do it in time is sort of the issue. I kind of have to hope that the Brits just hold here, which is an iffy thing. So I pulled back here. I threw Campbell in. Now, there are some guns placed up here that were able to interdict Campbell's movement, but they didn't manage to do so. We got a little bit of successful fire here, but now the French get to fire back. And remember, they've got their unlimbered artillery in place now. And the Brits were unable to pick any of the gunners off to lower the quality, to lower the value on those. And the British position didn't get me very much. So this didn't get to fire back, but I didn't get to shoot them. The guns didn't do much, anything actually, to the Brits. And we did get some fire here that was effective against the Cav. We disordered this unit, now it's shaken again, and I think we also caused a casualty to that. So having your Cav in range of the enemy's guns is not a great idea I may have to pull out of there, but if I pull out, I lose my capability to like prevent the outflank that's going to happen. So I'm in a rough position there, right? It's what happens with combined arms. You know, one thing trumps the other, and that artillery there is trumping the cav. The cav could charge, and it would get hurt really bad. You know, Ney's charge at Wellington at Waterloo proves that. You know, the idea of charging formed good infantry supported by artillery, it's just not going to go well. Anyway, and we probably would not form square in this case because we'd have the artillery to soften the cav, probably break it on the way in. And we would likely still stand because those are good units. They're not. So yeah, it's just an ugly situation where I don't have the counter for that artillery. What would that be? I don't know. You know, a combination of cav and artillery, but the cav would charge and the infantry would stay in line so that the artillery doesn't get to shoot it in square. And then we'd be in that same situation where the Brits can't withdraw the withdraw the cav attack. I don't know what the term they use is. It's the right term. Break off. Okay. And meanwhile, this is sort of a stalemate type situation. We'll see. You know, all kinds of shit can happen because there's so much randomness in the skirmisher firing, right? They don't do a lot, but each little bit just incrementally damages the enemy position. I'm going to hand haul this gun and shift it. Again, me, I think, making up rolls, but I can't accept that guns have to, like... I mean, otherwise, it would be 3, 4, 7 to do it. If I can just say, use all your movement points, you can hand haul it, you can shift one direction, that would be fair. Actually, you probably ought to be able to face any direction you like. And it may be embedded in the rules in a way. Like, I know that I can... So I know I can do this. This would cost me 3 to face this way, and then 3 to face that way, which would be effectively the same thing. So I'm just not sure that you can... I don't believe you can face in any direction when you're on limber. I think it's 180 degrees. And I can see the reasoning for that. I just don't buy it. If you can't hand haul guns to shift facing, something is not working right. And again, I don't want to look it all up. Are we excited enough to do a French turn too? Raid's in a weird situation. They're releasing a big fusion event, and these are the most expensive things to do. It takes me 2 weeks of heavy play, and this one looks like a good hero. It's one I want, but it's like, oh God, I could so do with not having, having to do this. But things have been kind of light recently, and it's not like I've been going outside. Like today, I could have gone outside and gone down to the river. It's a hot day. It's the kind of thing that I would have suggested to my wife, and she would have said no by the time we moved here. But, for the first few months we were in Eugene, we did a lot of river walks, the first year or so. But it's just, it's nice and everything, but doing it alone sounds so pointless, and I don't know. So Joseph and Sebastiani have a little chat. And Sebastiani now has orders, not accepted, but in D5 status, which means he will do these. To clear the hill and then head down on this side of the stream, actually to take this and then head down on this side of the stream to get all the way to Talavera. Those are different orders than I've given before. They're more extensive than the orders that were there for the First Corps, but and that exist for the First Corps. The First Corps' orders, I think, are just to get me down as far as this. First Corps will probably be pretty worn out if they make it that far. They're getting there. So, you know, the idea of taking on the Spanish here in this crap, basically, it's not pleasing. And, you know, they've got an entrenched position, but if I hit from the flank, that's pretty cool. It's like a sunken road or something. Now, let's see, we've got D5 on that. We got a D5 that didn't get resolved for Desolon or Desol or whatever to move up there. And Jordan's about to go have his talk. I feel like I've forgotten him, like he's gotten lost or something. I think I may have missed a turn or two with him, like just sitting there doing nothing. Not a huge deal. Initial fire is very effective. The artillery plows into this. That actually wrecked all of Sherbrooke's division. There's still one unit, Campbell, up here that's unwrecked, but the division as a whole is wrecked at this point. We had successes on both of these. They're now shaken. That's problematic. Now, do I just stand there and keep trading fire with the advantage in my hands, or do I charge up the hill? I like the idea of trading fire because First Corps is getting kind of weak. And the artillery here did a number over on Anson, and that is not good. They did a hit and threw it into disorder. It might be time to start swinging around. Just the cav is incapable of stopping me at this point. It might also be time to launch a cav charge against the disordered or blown cav, either of which gives me kind of an advantage. Obviously the disordered would be the best to hit. That's about it for there. The reason I'm excited in this and happy, this battle is turning out a lot better than I thought it would. I think the first time that I played this, the French attack kind of failed, and then basically nothing happened for the second day. That might be my own cautiousness, but I think it's more command issues got in the way. The French were not in great shape, and I just get the feeling that I didn't really fight out the full battle. Whether this was, I don't recall if this was me giving up because that first French attack was bad like it was in this case, or if I did continue the whole thing and just didn't get the orders in place. The latter seems really unlikely, but I may have made like an abortive early attack, an abortive morning attack, and just never quite gotten the hang of how to get to grips on the units. This time I'm getting to grips on them. I'm getting an actual fight out of it. It feels better. I definitely had worries that, you know, with all the special command rules hindering stuff, and with the defensiveness of this position, that there was just nothing I could do, and that I couldn't justify the attack. Well, I'm justifying the attack. I feel like I've got a shot at the French making it, which is the whole thing. If I don't feel like I have a shot, I shouldn't be making the attack, right? And that's why it may have been kind of I just did it so poorly, got so hooked up in the movement costs and going across the river and all the problems with trying to cross there, as opposed to doing the obvious and outflanking it from where the terrain's a little better. So I may have just been an idiot, and that may be why I had a bad impression of this battle. It's actually turning out to be maybe my second favorite of the games in terms of how it develops. I love Austerlitz. I think it's a wonderful situation for a battle, and that it works really well in this game. Marengo always felt a little small and like not much happened in it. Again, may have more to do with me than anything else. Aspirin Essling, pain in the ass with the terrain and everything that just made it, I don't know, it made it kind of into a confused mess where it just didn't feel like much could get done. And that's kind of the problem I have here. I feel like a lot can get done in Austerlitz. And I'm talking about as the Allies attacking the French. That's usually the point of view that I take in Austerlitz. I think the Allies have a good shot. The last game I had, the French came swarming up and did a pretty good number on the Allies, if I recall correctly. But other times I've played, the Allies have done very well by coordinating their own attacks. The little print and plays and Vimiero all felt too small. The terrain was too ugly in them. Just not that exciting. Here, yeah, this terrain is ugly, but it's like, you know, hitting Cemetery Ridge or something. It's a real piece of terrain that you can actually, you know, try to take you can try to take certain tactics to get around and to reduce the effectiveness of the terrain. But it is damn good terrain to defend in. And it's a nice match. Big French Corps versus solid, pretty good British forces. They stand and fight. And you know, one of the problems with the Vimiero one is you got all these Spaniards that really kind of aren't very good. Maybe I'm mixing it up with I don't know, Esposito or whatever. I don't know. But we gotta swap batteries. I know I'm babbling too much, making this take too many videos, but you know, I get 200 or so of you watching these, and I think most of you do it to fall asleep. It's time to zoom in because we got something new happening here. We've done some cav charges against the infantry, but now I'm going to charge the cav. Now, this isn't going to work completely as it normally would because the cav's disordered, which is a good thing. That means it's not going to get to countercharge, neither is the blown cav. So I come in here and I'm allowed to do this because its command rules allow it to be in command as long as it's in command of a divisional commander of the First Corps. It's kind of attached to the First Corps, but not to any specific division, but to all of them in some weird sort of way. All right. So we're going to be using the cav charge versus cav. We make a check to stand like we normally would, but both sides have to check. But first is the defender. Now, if this had been not disordered, it would check to stand. It would be able to do a countercharge and force the attacker to check to stand first. So that's a C morale unit. My leader's just a 1, so he's probably not going to do anything. This is wrong. It's in the wrong order. My heavy horse. Nope. The heavy's down here, I guess. I don't know. I got a heavy, I think. It's stationary cav, so it's -2. So that moves the C's 3 up to a 5. I'm disordered. That brings it to a 7. I may be racked. Nope. None of them are racked. So I'm at a 7. I can't roll a 7, but a 6 always succeeds. The British do not stand, so again, the French don't have to, they've won the battle already. And now we roll here, and I don't know if both sides are B or C. Who is this? Is this Anson? This is Anson. He's an A, so both sides are not B or C, so we don't worry about that. And both sides are definitely not A+, AA+. And again, the blue die will be rolling on the lost column for inflicting damage to the Brits. Okay, so we both got big hits. That's a 2 morale -1. That's a 3 morale -2. Cav charges allow, if you win the battle, a follow-on attack. So you're thinking, well, you should be able to go in here, except it was a Cav versus Cav charge. There are no follow-throughs in that case. And all that happens is the French Cav becomes blown, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and falls back, and I'll put that shaken like this so that I can see that it's a blown Cav and that I've taken it out. That happened during the movement phase. That's important to realize. So, you know, you can launch Cav attack after Cav attack when you have enough of them to blow the enemy Cav away, and then start hitting their infantry, knock that apart. The old system allowed, had all close combat done in the movement phase. That kind of allowed for infantry to do this kind of blitzkrieg type operations, but those were which are inappropriate for the infantry to be doing at this period. So I like the way the system works now for the infantry, but they kept it in the movement phase for the Cav so that the Cav could do that kind of operation. And more than that, they have the follow-through attacks, which unfortunately I would have had to consider. I'd be crossing a stream, but that's okay. I was shaken anyway, so it would have been. I really thought I was able to hit, because I was hitting stationary Cav. I thought I'd be able to hit another stationary Cav, but now even, and that would have been advantageous for me for knocking them both out. So now I've got to figure out what these guys can do up here, you know, in terms of getting around that corner. I think I've diffused whatever threat the British Cav present, for the near future at least. Now I'm taking things really easy. I moved up the hill here, leaving these guns in place to continue to threaten those Cav. They gotta pull back. They could be a real danger in a moment though, right? So after the next British turn, if those become unblown, they become a threat to the horse artillery here. But I'm hoping I'll have my Cav to help defend me, and that the artillery will be able to take one out as it charges. The infantry is in a safe position here. These guys are facing this way because of Mackenzie moving up, but the rest of them have moved up into a flanking position. Not enough movement points to make a charge. I might have considered it if that wasn't the case. This line I want to keep in place. I've got an advantage in skirmishers, which means I should win this duel up here and be able to push them back one way or another. I pulled my disorganized unit back from the line so that it's not in danger, and got other units moving forward. I'm leaving the artillery here, so I've got a unit here. This could have charged up the hill. It's not in bad shape. It might have been the more dramatic and powerful move, but right now I've got such an advantage. Whenever those British pull out of there, I get another round of artillery fire against them. So I'd rather just sit there. Given that nothing else is really rushing the British, sure, I could take this hex and that would strengthen the position of this unit or something. I don't know. But then I'm facing another division here. Well, actually, it's mismatched. The division's here, and I don't know what that is. But, you know, I'm facing fresher troops. Sure, I'd be getting more on the line, but in terms of skirmishers, I'm not putting a big advantage in numbers up there. So screw it. I'm going to sit in this position, and I guess we go to rally, right? No, we go to British fire. And let's see, the end position, we did rally, we did unblow the Cav. That's the biggie. Other than that, everything was kind of mechanical. Victor didn't rally his force. We're on to the British turn. I need a rest. Doing anything wears me out these days. I don't know. It's been years that it wears me out. Okay, on the British side of this 10:30 turn, they shift a little bit. You can see Wellington's moved this force. He's planning on pushing them even further forward if he has to. These guys moving to fill in the gap. Now I could fall back, but the problem is I can't fall back to this hex or this hex without suffering an additional morale loss. So everybody would have to fall to this hex, and that doesn't really do things. So I'm keeping my positioning here and hoping to throw more units into the line. But it's a shaky situation. I didn't get much off my firepower. I pulled Campbell over to here. That's going to be problematic, but I needed to get this disordered unit out. But it's in danger still of the French hitting it with some artillery fire. So, you know, it's really hard to swap units around in this system. Especially in some tightly constrained type, you know, this is a defensive position that's tightly constrained, and the French have managed to, you know, partially envelop it, which is causing the difficulties. Net effect, the artillery did manage to get just as good a shot on that unit and routed it back. It's now disordered, but from here, what was the advantage? Well, the advantage was I got Campbell out of the way, and that means that now I can withdraw back and defend against this kind of position. Of course, as long as that artillery has straight fires down the line, it's not very safe for me at all. And I'm not sure why the French would advance when they've got their guns in place like that, defending the flank of their advance. Up here, this unit got disordered, which is not good. It's going to have to fall back. It's getting uglier and uglier. And I guess that's about it. Now, using Wellington to move Mackenzie up, well, Wellesley, he's not Wellington yet, might not be the wisest thing. Maybe I should be trying to get some of these Spaniards. I'm thinking this 5th Division here is not too bad. They're B and C morale units, and they're kind of not integral to the main line. Like, I don't want to open this line up and let this very defensible terrain just be taken very easily by maybe a lucky initiative roll or something down here. And of course, I don't know what Jourdan's orders are. I'm assuming he's not going after the Spaniards, but there's always a possibility that, like, you know, a quick initiative roll by who's this? Ladder Malberg, something like that. I can't remember. Tour something or another. I got him on here, I'm sure. It might not be spelled. It might not be spelled out on here either. Yeah, they got the shortened there. Latour Malbrook. Yeah. Yeah. Ladder Malberg. Whatever. Is potential. Right now, it looks like Victor is winning. His assault is succeeding. One thing that I may have been forgetting, not really forgetting, but unable to see, is when I flipped through, not noticing the rifles. So, like, I noticed there was a rifle skirmisher in here. Knowing where those are is kind of a painful aspect of awareness that I just don't have right now. Okay, so the beginning of the 11 a.m. turn, and we're on the French side. The D5s both failed. Oh, I forgot to roll a... This is Victor. Let's see if he continues. He barely continues. Make sure I haven't wrecked something. Nope, not quite. Alright, so he keeps going. That would potentially kind of end this battle. Not necessarily, but you know, there's no clue when 4th Corps is going to come into play with those D5s. Now, I wanted to go over what happened with Jourdan. He's sitting here, delivers his orders, just like he's a regular commander issuing orders in person. And I ended up getting a wonderful D6 on that. Once upon a time, it was better to get a distortion than a D6. Because with a distortion, you could issue additional orders. In fact, sometimes it was better to get a distortion than any delay if you had good commanders and whatever. But that wouldn't happen generally. I'm trying to see. Yeah, distortion. Well, you could get one with pretty decent commanders. So, but anyway, now with essentially a D5 on, did you figure out if it's distorted or not? Distortions are actually really, really terrible. They can prevent anything from happening for the rest of the game, basically. All right, so now we go to the fire and then moving around. And the English forces on the top of the hill have essentially collapsed. Artillery fire was effective here, not so much anywhere else. It's really looking like the French are going to succeed in dislodging the Brits here. It's kind of funny. The historical situation fell somewhere in between my experiences and, say, the two plagues. I don't remember the first plague completely, but from what I can tell, it looks like the French got off a limited attack and didn't really succeed in like pressing any further. They may have had two failed attacks, like I said, in the evening and in the morning. This time I had a failed attack in the evening before night fell. I think if I ever play this again and remember it, I will try to launch the attack actually at night so that the artillery can't blow me up, or else delay until I can get the appropriate positioning. By the way, if the camera's shakier than usual, my hands are incredibly shaky right now. Like it's like there's some sort of palsy going on in them. I don't know what it is. It kind of feels like I need to eat, or like I haven't had coffee or anything, which can sometimes cause it. But it kind of feels like I need to eat, and I know I've eaten well more than I need to. So I don't know. It's just my nervous system doesn't understand it, which makes manipulating tweezers and little pieces really, really hard for whatever that's worth. But yeah, now we've got kind of an opening to move up and smash into the Brits if we want to, or to just continue this sort of slower, more cautious type of attack. I noticed I didn't get a fire in here, and then I tried to like pick the pieces apart, and you can see, I mean, this is the worst that's happened, but I'm really having trouble controlling my movements. I choose not to advance pretty much anywhere. I moved a little bit here. Got enough skirmishers here that I can cancel his out. I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm over skirmished by being in this position or whatever. A lot of the movement has to be very slow. Here I looked at the unit. It was a little too beaten up to move forward. Same thing with these guys. One of them was shaken. I didn't want to charge up the hill with shaken guys. Again, the Brits are in some trouble. Like if I withdraw back, I rout immediately, although that may be my best move. Over here, I've got units under here, over, under, whatever. They could have advanced into this hex. You couldn't go much further without, again, pushing. And I kind of don't want to, because that would screen my artillery, which is a big advantage that I have right now, that artillery on that flank. I will limber them up and whatever once I clear the hill, but until then it doesn't make much sense. So I'm going very, very slowly. I had to check the rule on zones of influence here because I had a shaken unit here. Normally it can't recover when it's in front of, when it's in the front arc of a unit. I didn't even realize that. I thought it was just adjacent. But disorganized units in march column, they don't count. So this isn't a threat, so I'm able to reorganize just like I was in the older versions of this series. And yeah, so my units are pretty much in good shape. I don't think I can play. I'm having to like stabilize my hand to do anything, lean on stuff. I've been in this kind of situation before. Oh, there was one more thing I want to do here. This unit might be able to recover, but it's from First Corps. First Corps has combat orders, so I'm just going to put it over here. If it ends up, leaving its engage orders, I'll be in a position where I can start recovering stragglers with it. I don't know if there's anything in Fourth Corps, or yeah, Fourth Corps that's got stragglers. Yeah, there is. Well, not stragglers. It's got actual losses from artillery fire. But yeah, I'm gonna have to stop here. I thought I'd come up and play a turn, but man, I don't know what the hell is going on here. Guessing I just need to put food in my body so that it knows that I've eaten or something. That usually is the case. At one point I thought I might be diabetic or something, because my reactions, even when I'm not hungry, like when I need food, are just so weird. I mean, I was in the hospital and they took my blood and everything. Never again. And I assumed something like that would show up. So I'm guessing that I'm just, this is the way I process hunger. Not even hunger, just like the mental state. Get a little bit of my minimal food substance, which is basically a wrap with some spinach in it, whatever. And it seems to have calmed me down a little bit. I really don't know what was going on. It may be just, I don't know if the amount of tea could do this to me. It doesn't usually. So I don't know. Anyway, the Brits opened fire here, where they had an advantage of one because they had some rifle skirmishers, and here where they succeeded in getting a hit. Artillery didn't do anything. I'm going to try to extricate the Brits. I just rout if I run away there, but it may be my best situation rather than take the fire. And that's indeed the option I took. I retreated back there. One of the key questions is what to do with Wellesley. I moved him down to the 5th Division here. I'm going to try to give it orders. Remember, for me to succeed in giving it orders, I have to force it to detach, and that means Cuesta has to accept the order as well, basically. Again, going to have to come up with some special means of designating that, but that'll be next turn's problem, not this turn. This little 1 here, that unit does get to attempt to recover, and I'm doing it back here because Mackenzie's up here, so he's in command, moving, disengaged here. This guy, of course, routed, and now we suffer the French artillery. I pulled the cav back a little bit too, to get it out of range, to get the range from those artillery to be worse, but I don't know if it's bad enough. It's not bad enough, but it's unlikely for hits to happen. Yeah, it's unlikely as this, though, which got another hit on Campbell's infantry there. Nothing else happened. Even the big artillery wasn't able to do anything. And that will put us to the rallying, where we make a roll for that, among other things. And so that was actually successful. The rally, not much else. These guys fell back, but the straggler recovery was successful. And this is the situation we have. So, I feel like the English have lost the hill, and this video has gone for some time. So, I think I'm going to load it up. We went with a pretty in-detail look at the combat as it's going. And I do like, I think it is of value to look at the key events as they're happening, not necessarily all the mechanics that are involved in it or mechanisms of play. I just remember because at one point I was saying mechanisms instead of mechanics, and somebody was so happy because they're like, well, every time I hear mechanics, I think of the car dude. And now it's stuck, and so sometimes you'll catch me correcting myself when there's no real reason. It's just, but yeah, I feel like the British have lost the heights. of the Cerro de Median there, and there's still a lot of interest to happen. First Corps still has orders to keep coming down. Of course, Victor could give up his orders at any time. Fourth Corps has its own orders that it's waiting on. And with the English line in disarray and collapsing, the Spaniards look a whole lot weaker. Now, it might, yeah, see, the point values for the Spaniards basically cancel out the territory they're holding. So I think I actually do want to defend for as long as I kind of can. But then if they can't keep defending, I think it's off this way. But it might be this way because this has a letter. I know there's all kind of special rules about this bridge. I don't know why if there's no reason to use it. So, but yeah, if the Spanish do withdraw, the Brits will be trying to screen their withdrawal so that they don't get hammered. Because if they get wrecked, whatever, they don't produce points anymore. Is basically the issue. All right, so we'll load this one up.